exciting. I'm April, and,
I am Maria Anifoshe.
well, Anne Marie's laughing at you right up here.
Hey, Annie.
We are really honored that you came here tonight, and we are excited to tell you part of our story and how we came to be a family and how we came to be here. Before we start, I just want to acknowledge that our journey has been holy and hard. And tonight we're going to touch a lot more on the holy part. And I think it's fair to acknowledge that some of the hard, we're still processing. And I think I would be remiss in not sharing that Maria comes from Lagos, Nigeria. And the goal was always for Maria to go back home and to start a school for the impoverished children there. That was the plan since the day that I met you. So the situation in Nigeria has changed dramatically since Maria has been here. And so her going back to run a Christian school in a territory where Western educated Christians are being targeted is not possible. And so I mention that to say that as we talk about our story and we share all of the ways that God has touched our life and been a part of this journey, I have to also acknowledge that this is a young lady who has not seen her biological parents in 6 years, that there are still people in Nigeria who are hurting, who are hungry, who are in danger. And so I say that to say thank you for hearing our story about how God has stepped in. But I also say that to acknowledge that some of you are still in the middle of your hard. And we are going to touch on our hard, but we don't skip over the fact that God comes to us in the middle of the hard. So we'll share a little bit about that, and we'll have a little fun telling about what it's like when you have someone join your family from across the ocean in the most unlikely of ways. So as we talk about our hard, we'll go to the first slide here. I want to show you my family and how we got started. So Kip and I got married in 2009. And at that time, I didn't marry just Kip, so I married his daughter as well. And so Lauren and I became her bonus mom, if you will, when she was 4. And so she's been a part of my life for our entire marriage, but really she's grown up with me being a part of her story. And that's important to say here because Kip and I knew I wanted to be a mom. It was never a question to me that I wanted to be a part of her life and her world, and that I wanted to have my own children. But when you marry a man who already has a child and you go through infertility, it exacerbates all the emotions and all the feelings of insecurity. And so our hard was met right there in the very beginning of our marriage. And it led us to go to 2 years of counseling through that series of events. So surgeries and procedures. But I'm really thankful for that because in that counseling, we spent a lot of time talking about would we ever foster, would we ever adopt, what would life as a family look like for us? And the beauty in that is that we uncovered a lot of what we both needed in our marriage. And I should also say, if you're aware of Lydia's Place in our community, that is really the birthing spot for Lydia's Place, was the prayers to see how we might get involved in foster care and realizing that it might not be within the walls of our home. And so our heart was met there, and the prayer that I continued to pray over and over again was, we are not finished yet. God, our family is not complete. And that was just my constant prayer. And it was right. God, he heard me, not in the form that I thought he was going to hear me. And yet, here we are. So that's where I was in 2009. Maria, tell us about where you were in 2009.
Yes, so for me in 2009, the picture of where I lived or where I stayed looked like this. And it was living in a place that was once a landfill, and it was a friend of my dad's was like, okay, since you'll have no place to stay, how about just build a wooden structure up here and live there? And we lived in the jungle of rats. So, but in this picture here, our children from my compound, and the lady in white right there is my mom, and the chairs out there, we had church that day for the kids, but there I was in that community, and God was birthing in my heart a dream to come study abroad, which I myself did not know how it was going to come to pass, and I had friends and neighbors that said, you are crazy, Maria. You're really insane. How in the world would you ever dream such a dream? Your parents can hardly afford 3 square meals a day. Like, where in the world do you want to get that amount of money or even ever go abroad? But the thing that used to happen during that time would be whenever I see airplanes fly across our community, I would just say a prayer in my heart and be like, Lord, by so, 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 and so time, I believe that you can bring me and take me abroad to go study. And yeah, so that was for me the hard season. Apart from that, during that season, I could not get into college back in Nigeria because I failed math woefully, like like in grand style. And so going to college was not even possible. And so with all of those failures and hard times, it was like, oh, all my dreams are shattered. At a point, my parents had to move me out of that community to just go stay in the mountain to pray. So, because my mom was like, she saw how I was so shaken by the shame and the fact that I felt like my dreams were shattered in that season.
I want to give credit when you say I failed math woefully. Give credit there that you didn't have the books that you needed. And so you were having to show up to school early or borrow a book from someone because y'all couldn't afford the books. And so I don't know that it was a lack of your intelligence. I think it was more a lack of the resources to do your schooling. But nonetheless, I think you can see that this was hard, like where you were living was hard. And I just think the most beautiful thing that happened is the prayer that you began to pray. And you wrote a song that became your prayer. And so I'm good at putting people on the spot, so I'm going to put Maria on the spot. And I'm going to ask her to sing that prayer for you now. I'm going to get you to stand right here so you're in the light, and I'm going to move over there. I sat in the wrong seat. Okay.
Yeah, so like she said, during the hard season of my life, yeah, this song just came to my spirit, and it was what carried me through those seasons. And it says, I choose to be happy, and I choose to feel blessed. I know that I'm favored by God, and I am nothing less. I know God's got me through all these trials. So I choose to be happy because I'm favored and I am nothing less. I'm full of hope for tomorrow, and I won't put my head down because I know I will win. I'm full of hope for my tomorrow, and I won't put my head down because I'm sure I will win.
So I just think it's compelling to hear that she's praying this prayer, living in hard conditions and knowing that she's favored by God even then. And there's a scripture that we both look at in Isaiah, and he says, I will not cause pain without allowing something new to be born. And that has been so true in our story. And so Maria and I met in 2012. I'm going to show a picture, but before we get into the story, I want to show you something really compelling about this story. And that is that we did not go this road alone. So you're going to see my picture up on the screen, but there are a lot of people in this room who know Maria and know her story. And so I just want you to watch this with how many people are in the room who know Maria. If you have been a part of Maria's journey or story in any way prior to tonight, and that means you knew Maria, you drove Maria somewhere, you donated to Maria, you have been a part of her story, would you stand up right now so that we can see how many people in this room have walked alongside her? Thank you, guys. The heroes are in this community, and I am so very thankful for you. And I'll also add that the row right here, I'm looking at a group of Jody Whitaker's friends. And Jody was a dear friend of Maria and someone who drove Maria frequently. Jody became a part of your story, carrying on the legacy of one of her best friends, Randy Bates. And to see that now you guys are here carrying that forward, it just means the world to us. And so I want to say thank you. Maria and I met at Disney World, which seems an unlikely place for us to meet, given given her background. And so, what happened? How did we get there?
Yes, so fast forward. So having the crazy dream in Nigeria, but then so the state government in my country, they set up this writing contest, and they were like, "Oh yeah, if you write this contest or participate, you would go abroad." And I was like, yeah, it's a lie. No, but my teacher was
There's
like,
a lot of corruption, so
yes. And so, but my teacher said, you have nothing to lose. Participate. And so I wrote the essay. We moved on to the finals, but then I came as second place. And I was shattered right on that stage because, oh my goodness, I don't think I'll be able to go abroad anymore. But to my surprise, at the very end of the event, they were like, oh, by the way, both the first and the second place would go. I was like, whoa, God. And that was the first door that God opened up. And it opened the opportunities for more scholarship that brought me to Orlando that year, where I met April and her mom, Nana.
and my story was coming to pass. So by this time, I was pregnant with Lydia. So God was beginning to answer my prayers and the fertility challenges that we had had. And Nana was there more or less babysitting me because she was just sure I was going to give birth in Florida. And she was there with Lauren, and so they were going to the theme parks during the day. But every day I would speak, and then every night we would go to the theme parks. And it's really tricky at those camps to understand that most of the people there are from extreme wealth. So they're sending their kids to a camp at Disney World for the week. And yet they scholarship in some students who've been deemed a leader in their community. And so that's how Maria got there. But as a speaker, I don't really know who those kids are. So they're all wearing matching t-shirts. Everyone has a meal plan, and you don't really know who's who until we went to a water park. And at the water park, Nana had bought a gluttonous bucket of ice cream. And it's the kind, like the full sand pail that you would get, full of ice cream. And we are sitting down to eat it. And we turn around and can see Maria's eyes and like her drool over this ice cream. And so we said, well, would you like some? And the sheer delight of seeing someone like delve into that ice cream, we knew probably she was one of the ones who had not had access to that kind of excess before. And so you sang a song at that conference, and it just really caught our hearts. But I have to acknowledge here that one of the biggest heroes in this story is really Nana, because she picked you out. She's the one who knew you were special. And so the week ends, and we've just kind of been hanging out together for the week. Yes. I think you were scared I was going to have a baby, and so you kept carrying bags for me. and so you kept trailing behind me, and we keep meeting. But the end of the camp arrives, and we're in the lobby, and I think you should note that Maria speaks better English than we do here in the South. And yet, there's no language barrier, and yet Nana asked her in the lobby, do you have money for snacks on your way home? And you said, like,
snacks? They're going to give us food, like, back in their airplane. And so she was like, no, you need snacks.
and so at the end of Disney World, all the cash that's left in your pocket is about $20. And so she hands her $20. And we go on our way, and 5 years passes. But every year, on the anniversary of the day that my mom gave Maria $20, she would take herself to an internet cafe and pay so that she could send me a message on Facebook Messenger and say, would you please get in touch with your mom and thank her for the gift that she gave me? And so...
Yeah, that $20 was life-changing for me because I was able to take that $20 and buy rice and food at home that fed my family for almost a week. And so to me, that $20 was just way beyond snacks, and it was life-changing for me.
So I just want to say, we would have done more than $20 had we known. Okay, so I want to put that there. But what I'll also add is that I wish that the next part of the story was really framed up in benevolence and me giving. That is not how we really got to the next phase of this story. So I am a speaker for a living, so I am, speaking at these camps. But as a speaker, you're always looking for the story. Like, what's the story? And so fast forward to 2017, and I was invited back to that same camp to speak in Atlanta, Georgia. I say Atlanta, Georgia because Maria knew Atlanta, Georgia was where I lived. And that was also the year you got asked to come back and be a camp counselor at the camp. And so my messages started blowing up.
Yeah, so I reached out to April. I was like, I'm coming to Georgia. Like, for the same conference, will you be there? And April's like, yes, I will be there as a speaker as well. And so we just started to message. And she was like, Maria, how about your dreams that you told me about when I met you 5 years ago? You said you wanted to come study abroad. How is that going? And I was like, oh no, that dream shattered. Because just so many things happened, like the failure with the math. I was just so down and depressed in that season of my life that I was like, I don't think it's ever possible. And the reason why I actually even chose to come again as a counselor was like, okay, I don't know what to do with my life, but I'll come serve.
And so literally, I'm just looking for the big close for the speech is really what I was doing. And so I was like, Maria, tell me what you want to do with your life. And then I said, would you send me some pictures of where you're from? And so I got the picture back on Messenger, and it was a picture of Maria's house. So we'd seen her compound before. We'll go to the next slide, and I'll show you. Yep. So this is a picture of Maria's personal home growing up. And so when I saw that picture, it just astounded me. And so tell us what we're seeing in this picture.
Yes, so in this picture, you're seeing, okay, this is the house, the landfill where we built the house. But then there's this big blue drum right here. So because there was no running water then, you will go to the neighboring streets and fetch water and fill up the drum. If you can see the roof, there are like little bowls up there where you try to capture the rainwater. And so this is what it looks like living back in Nigeria then.
So I asked for two things. I said, show me your house and show me your family. So let's see what your family looks like, and let you introduce us.
Yes, and so right there is my dad, and there is my mom, and we're four kids. This is the first child, the second, my sister's the third, and then I'm the last child.
The baby.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And what do your parents do?
Yes, so my dad, he is a carpenter. So like if somebody has a broken furniture in the community, they would hire him to help repair it. And my mom would go cook for like wealthy families, just cook for them for the whole week. And that was how they made ends meet for the kids.
All right, so I'm equipped now. I have these pictures, and I'm ready to give the close at the speech. But Maria throws me a surprise, and I didn't know that you were going to be the one to introduce me as I'm going up to speak. And only God could orchestrate. The next picture is Maria. The speech actually was taking place on her birthday. So we're meeting up in Atlanta. She's introducing me, and I don't know it. I'm closing with her, and she doesn't know that, and it's her birthday. I mean, that's pretty cool. So I tell her story, and at the end of the speech, I have everyone in the room sing happy birthday to Maria. And then I say, if there is someone in this room who would intersect in her story and be willing to help us get this child into college, I know that you will step forward. Well, the crowd's all excited because no one knew where she came from. And so they're hugging her and clapping and so much excitement in the room, and they miss hearing that the founder of the camp steps to the stage and says, I'll fund her first semester. And so when we finally told you, it was this incredible moment. And so that really was the tipping point of us saying, like, maybe there's something we could do here. But that proved, like, money proved to be one of the smallest problems. And it was a problem, but it proved to be one of the smaller problems. We couldn't get the visa. We had to get you accepted into a college and without math or science background.
Yeah, and so they had to enroll me to tutoring because we're not failing in grand style this time. Oh my goodness. And I was able to pass that math and immediately had to go back to Nigeria to go get that visa.
Yeah. So all of this takes place, and there's one more major unsung hero that has to be addressed. So really, Maria was only going to be here for 2 weeks. That was the plan. 2 weeks to let her come. And you can only imagine me sitting my husband down and saying, there's this girl that I met at a speech from Africa, and she's messaged me for 5 years, and I just want to see if I can bring her home for 2 weeks. And so that's what happened. And so we leave this speech. She comes home with us for what was going to be 2 weeks. We now have an acceptance to college. And Kip and I have gone through all this counseling leading up to building our family. And so I don't dare ask for more than 2 weeks. That was it. And on the third night of Maria being in our home, Kip sits me down in our living room and he says, April, an angel has landed in our house. And she's going to stay forever. So you just go figure it out. I'm like, okay. And so I just think that we should show Kip because he is really how this all got started and him starting to notice that Maria was special. And so now we have a college acceptance to UNG Oconee. Lots of people stepped in there. Kay Keller stepped in a huge way and has to be acknowledged working at UNG at that time. And so we have a college acceptance. We have no visa, and we've got to send you back to Nigeria. We have to raise money for a plane ticket, and we had $240 left over. And I just want to tell you that if I have lived in the house that Maria grew up in, and I'm given $240 extra, like I'm saving it, I'm going to buy something we need, and that is not what you did. All right, so show a picture of what you did with the money.
Yeah, so I knew that $240 was $20 multiplied in many places. So I went back to Nigeria, and it was a gift given, and it was a privilege to get to give the gift also to the kids in the compound. So we bought shoes and school supplies, and we bought this huge bag of rice in the next slide. Yes, and the bag of rice cost like $70, but the family cannot afford a full $70. So we bought that, and we were able to ration it out for all the parents that came in that day at Christmas.
Because the small bags are really inflated in price,
Yes.
but the big bag is a lot less when you divide it up. So you were able to provide a lot. Why did you want to give shoes to the kids?
Yes. So in Nigeria, in the public school systems, like if you don't have the right color shoe, so if they require a brown sandal and white socks, if you don't have it, they can send you back home for not having that specific color. And so we were like, oh, before the new year starts, how about let's get this set of shoes for the students?
So you handed it out on Christmas Day. And so we've got a picture here of what that looked like.
The little kiddos.
So they were getting their shoes and you were having Christmas for them. And then right after Christmas, college is starting right there in January. And so things were not looking good for the visa. We were on a time crunch.
Yes.
And so you're there panicking, trying to figure it out. And now Maria had been with us for 4 or 5 months at this point. And so I'm attached. And so I can remember very specifically one night in our bedroom, I was laying on the ground praying and like beating my hand on the floor and saying, God, like, why would you let this child have a college acceptance and you're not letting her get back here? Why? And like, it was just in his time, not in our time. And so Maria literally got the okay to come back the day before classes started. And so we get her back home, no prep time, none. And her first day of college, I need you to know that I was not a cool mom that day. I am dancing in the parking lot. I am celebrating.
Taking pictures.
It was like kindergarten, only we're going to college. And so we just thought it was cool that she got to be there. But what was so fast forward to October, I think is the date here. And I'm flipping through social media and I see her picture on an advertisement for the school. And I'm like, that's a joke. Like, we are here. How did this happen? But really, like, getting into college there allowed us to have so many fun firsts because now we knew we've got time for you to be here. And so this kind of started our series of what we called, it was like welcoming an elf into our house because everything was new and exciting. And so we had, the very first was learning to ride well, I shouldn't say learning to ride a bicycle.
Because we've not learned it yet.
But we
don't
tried
have it down.
riding a bicycle. All right.
Oh my goodness.
And then Kay came back and gave you a new experience with a parade.
Yes.
So most people would attend a parade before they're in a parade, but that's not how Kay operates either. So she called and said, do you want to be in a parade?
And I'm like, yes, I would love to.
And then she calls me and she goes, please, April, what is a float? And
Oh my goodness.
and so there were a lot of other like funny things that she would call and announce to me. So one day I got a call from her on her phone at school, and she says, "Yes, I have signed up for a 5K that will benefit." And I said, "Maria, do you know what a 5K is?" "No, but I am sure it will be good." And then another time I get a call, and she says, "Yes, I will be going to Alabama for spring break." And I said, "What are you going to do in Alabama? What were you going to do in Alabama?"
Oh, yes, so we were going to go with the Habitat for Humanity in the Oconee campus. Sorry, I'm laughing and crying. So, in the Oconee campus, because it was the season of some tornadoes in Alabama, and we were going to go help build a house there.
So this is the irony that here she's off building houses for other people. Okay, so some other fun. So Lisa Collette is here. She took you on another very cool experience.
Yes, so this is a girl from Africa, and you would expect that I would have seen all the animals in the zoo in Africa, but no, because you had to be able to have the money to afford to go there. And so this was another trip to Alabama with Lisa, and I got to see an elephant for the very first time in my life.
And then one of your other very favorite places on earth is
Washington Farms because of their trampoline. That's my favorite toy in the world after a slinky.
okay, and so then you got to experience snow.
Yes, and that was gorgeous.
I think this would really explain some of the hard. And so I will interject there and say, I remember on this day that Maria had an ear infection. And you were hurting, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to drive to go, because the roads in Georgia, whatever. And so we were trying to figure out, and you were in so much pain, but more than anything, you were hysterical that your ear was hurting so bad. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, it's just an earache. You're fine. Like, I did not understand. And my brother is, like, we call him our survivor man. And so I call him, and I'm like, she's so upset, I don't know. And he comes over, and I remember you're laying on the couch, like you'd come in from the snow. You wanted to see it so bad. You're laying on the couch, and Richard gets eye level with you. And he says, "Maria, do you understand you're not going to die?" And I was like, "Die? She has an earache." But in his mind, he knew what Maria was thinking, and that is, if you get sick, you may not make it. And so she had gone down a path I didn't even know to look into, right? So we have snow, so that's one of the experiences. Then one of your favorite categories of the United States is food. And so let's show you what some new experiences there were. So
Yes. First of all the sweets. And Hershey's Kisses is the winner of the candies, because one Christmas we went to Lynn is right here. We went to her house for Christmas, and there's a bowl of Hershey's Kisses. I was like, I only see that on TV. And sure, that night I took a whole pack of Hershey's Kisses back home with me.
So and your favorite food here when you got here was all the meat.
Yes, because, okay, here is why. So in Nigeria, you did not have your personal meat. So if you had meat in the pot, it was for everybody in the house, and you split it within all your siblings. And so the very first day I arrived at April's house, makes a bratwurst sausage and puts it in my plate. And I was like, this whole meat is mine? Like, yes, it's all yours. Bratwurst became my favorite food that day.
We've tried to upgrade since then. We're working on it. Okay, so then we had some other firsts. So you got to go really kind of a food holiday, trick-or-treating for the first time. And so
oh my goodness, yeah, I'm dressed as a Nigerian lady with a bowl on my head, because this is how I used to fetch water back in Nigeria. Just different, this time I'm fetching candies.
and your sister saw the pictures.
And she was like, wait, are y'all doing a fundraiser? I'm like, no, it's a holiday called Trick or Treat.
Okay, so then some of the other fun things that we got to experience started with a slinky.
Yes.
She loves a slinky. A lot of the toys you missed growing up.
Yeah, I'm reliving my childhood.
You explain the middle one.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, this is me trying to learn how to drive, which Janet asked me today that, have you finally learned to drive? I don't have it down yet. I'm so
Don't
sorry.
have it down. have made zero progress.
Like zero progress.
Okay. So, but one of my favorites was when Maria came upstairs and I'm vacuuming, and she says, "Oh, please, could I try that?" And I said, "Oh, yes, you can. Yes, and put you right to work." All right. And so you decided, again, you would not go to play. Like all these things that most people would experience first in the audience, she would jump straight in. So Lisa gets her involved at Brightstone, and you end up doing a play. And so, but this brought about some other firsts.
Yes, so because I got to wear makeup for the first time. And so back in Nigeria, in my dad's church, like you're not allowed to wear makeup, jewelry, pants, anything like that. And so we do this show, Thoroughly Modern Millie, and I had to wear makeup because of all the bright lights. And then the picture was posted on Facebook, and I got a phone call from my parents and like, "Have you gone wayward?" I was like, "No, it's just for a play."
So, and the other picture here, Maria getting here, her favorite band of all time still today is Hillsong United. And so we wanted her to get to have the experience of going to a Hillsong concert. And so we got tickets really up close to the stage. And they came out right before the concert started, and we're doing kind of like
Like for compassion. Yeah.
they were just kind of educating everyone on compassion and seeing if people would take on a compassion child, which is pretty cool to know that people, like I'm seeing Lindsay right now, who just went to go meet her compassion child. So it's just amazing the circles that happen here. But you didn't help their sales pitch that day because they came out and said, it's like this, they have quiet music playing, and they said, "Who in here this morning woke up and is thankful for a potty?" And Maria on the third row, "Me!"
Didn't help their pitch at all. Well, yes, that is one of the major things I'm most grateful for, because back in Nigeria, you have to go to a bush in the evening or at night to get to use the potty.
And so she would tell us, she would wake up in the morning and say, "I just want to thank you, God, for the potty." And I'm like, we get it all wrong, don't we? And so, all right, so then you learn to swim. And this was more successful, but there was a hero in the mix to making it happen.
Yes, and that is Papa, April's dad. So whenever we go to the beach as a family, Papa would not get into the water, but he did get in the water because of me and trying to teach me how to swim.
So, and for you to stand waist deep in the ocean is monumental. And so,
Yeah.
because before getting there, you'd never even seen a bathtub. So, like,
No.
let alone the idea of getting in the ocean.
And the first time in April's pool, I was gripping her hands. That no, I can't.
So we had so many firsts and so many neat things happening. And yet, we were really experiencing all of this through Maria's eyes and becoming more and more aware of the excess that we are surrounded by in this community. And so the next picture is back at Washington Farms, one of Maria's favorite places. And there she's playing with Lydia in the corn. And Kip leans over and whispers to me, and he says, "April, this is so embarrassing." He says, "There is more food that these kids are playing in than she would need to feed her village." And like, it was just one of those awarenesses for us of the excess and the abundance that is here. But that really carried forward. So, I mean, just so many nights Maria would be scraping food from our dinner table into the trash can. And I just remember how many times she would say, "It's just so sad. It's just so sad." And so we are being educated all the time about what's happening across the world through your eyes as you're seeing things. And so we did not know, but I want you to tell everyone, like, what is an 010 or an 001?
Yes, so an 010 is that so you skip breakfast, you eat lunch, and then you skip dinner, or you skip breakfast and lunch and eat dinner. So the zeros are for the meals that you skip.
Because you don't have them.
Yes.
And so, so again, like we're learning all of this, and you see it on TV, but it's very different when someone is sitting in your house and they see the waste and the extra. But one of the biggest times that we were so aware of this was on Christmas morning. And so, show you a picture of our house at Christmas. And before you judge me, I bet your house looks somewhat similar to that. And so, what I will say is that sitting at Christmas and like just realizing when we're looking around at how much we get and what we do at Christmas, the very first time, it was the first time I'd felt icky on a Christmas, looking and saying what we do and what you miss. So tell us, what's Christmas like? What do you get at Christmas in Nigeria?
The highlight we look forward to the most at Christmas back in Nigeria was that you had your own meat. So your siblings were not eating your meat, you had your own chicken drumstick.
And so it just really brought to light for us the difference in our world and theirs. And it has taught us so much about parenting and about our family and how we operate. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of my mom friends are in this room right now, and I'm not getting it all right, right? Not at all. But I've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot having Maria really help raise our kids. And so I wanted to just give you some things to consider that we've learned, because the reality is you're probably not going to have an African land at your dinner table and like for you to go through all of this. But I think there's some things that we can take away as we raise children in light of so much extra. And so the first thing that we just really want everybody to remember is from you teaching us that
Yes, that we are so blessed. And even including me being here in the United States for so long, I realize just how blessed I am to be surrounded by so much resources, and that God calls us to be stewards of those resources.
And I just really think about this. We are so blessed because it's May, and like I want to give kudos to every mother who is here right now, because it's crazy in May. And it's easy to start zipping around and being frustrated with all the gifts we've got to get and the activities we've got to do and the vacations we've got to plan. And like it is so important to remember that that is bonus. Like that is the good stuff. And it's easy to forget it along the way. The next thing that we just really have learned from Maria is to focus on what matters. And it's been the most interesting turn of events that Lydia's place started really around the same time that Maria was moving in with us. And I need to say, there were times I was like, God, like, why? Why Lydia's place and I have this extra child, and they're not related? And people would assume, like, oh, you must be a Lydia's place child. And that was an interesting part of our life. But really, the dichotomy between the two was really helpful for me to learn. And that is that so many of the Lydia's Place kids that we serve did not come from extreme poverty. They came from abuse and neglect. And their parents did have the financial resources to take care of them, but they didn't use them well. Maria's family, who I'm looking at and I'm learning from and like messaging with, because to know Maria, I want to know her parents. And there's a language barrier, and yet they were doing everything to try to communicate with me. But they got it right, and they didn't have anything to give. Like they didn't even have money for food, and they nailed it when it comes to parenting. And I just want to tell you that as I'm learning to be a better parent, like I want to look right here at Rachel and Samson and tell you they got it. And I'll tell you how I know, because at 4 a.m, I have never ever woken my children up and said, let's pray over the food we need today. It just didn't happen. And yet they did. And one day I really understood the power of how they raised Maria. We were riding in the car, and I had had some heart issues going on. And I was having to have some tests run. And I dropped the kids off at preschool, and I didn't want them to know that I was having a hard time. And so right when they got out, I just started crying, because you should know my route up Hog Mountain was preschool, elementary school, high school, college every day. So going between all them. And I finally said to Maria, like, hey, sorry, I just need a minute, but I have to go have some tests today. And I mean, without even thinking about it, Maria reaches her arm across, grabs my shoulder, and she says, in the name of Jesus, you will be healed. And you went on to share with me about your parents and medical things that you had fainting when you were a child. And there was no doctor, and there was no opportunity. And prayer is what they had, and they got it right. And the other thing that I want to say about that is that your parents prayed over you a prayer for years, which is amazing to me. And the prayer was, you will find a mother and father wherever you go. And like, I'm going to tell you, I am a mom, and like, I'm a mama bear, and like, I don't want anybody else mothering my kids. Like, those are my babies, right? And so for them to have the foresight to know that like where someone else may provide for you what we can't is amazing to me. So focus on what matters as parents. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. And then the next thing is just to become a helper. And I say that because when we think about, Mr. Rogers always says, look for the helpers. And I tell that to the Lydia's Place students a lot. Look for the helpers. Look for the people who can step in and help you. But I know we're at a women's event right now, and like what I know is that we are the helpers. We are the people who are biologically inclined to step in and help and to look for someone in need. It is in us. But we want to become a helper. And I will promise you this, when you become a helper, that the person you're helping is going to lead you to the other people who need help. They know. And so that's been the coolest thing that's happened along our story. So Maria's joining our family, but now Kip and I are like the American parents to a whole slew of Nigerians. They call Kip Abraham. He's the father of the nations in our house, right? And so there's a picture here that really kind of sums up, but like she took us to the others who needed to know us. And so we met Daniel. He started coming to our house, and really we claim him as one of our sons. And Daniel's mom couldn't come back from Nigeria to be at his wedding, and so he invited me to be the mom for him and to get to wear the clothes and to do the things. And Lydia and Anne-Marie got to be the flower girl and the junior bridesmaid in their wedding in a totally different culture. And I would just tell you that in becoming the helper, we've been helped far more than anyone that we've helped. And that's been really amazing. And the last thing that I want to say about this is that service is good. And for any of you who have volunteered at Lydia's Place or any of the nonprofits that are represented here, I just want to tell you, our ministry is built on service. We can't do what we do without you. But I want to add a caveat to that. Service is good, but love is better. And I have served plenty of people that I didn't love, but I've never loved someone that I didn't serve. And so as we think about parenting our kids, when we can teach them to love, that is a different level. And so I think this is best described by, the next picture is Lydia and Maria, and they have just the coolest bond. Of our 4 kids, we have 2 and 2. And so Lydia and Maria are so similar, and Lauren and Anne-Marie are so similar. But what I will say about Lydia and Maria is that they are sensitive, they are kind, and they just get each other in a really cool way. But to show you the love and how that changes a child's thinking, it was Martin Luther King Day, and it was Lydia in the 1st grade. And she came home, and she said, "Mommy, we learned about Rosa Parks today." And she says, "Where would Maria have sat?" And like the intention in her question, that was a hard day in our family. But I want to tell you what I read in her notebook. So she had her coloring page. And it was like, we all get those papers home like that ask the question. And the question was, if this was you today, what would you do? And Lydia, in her 1st grade drawing, had drawn clearly a white person and clearly a brown person holding hands, like in their stick figure selves. And she wrote, in all her broken English, "I would sit with my sister." And my friends, I just want to tell you, like, our kids get it. Like, we don't have to teach them to love. They get it. But they learn it when we demonstrate it to them. And Anne-Marie is a different character, and the way that she loves Maria is different. Like, Anne-Marie approaches her relationship with Maria in total curiosity. Like, she wants to know about her hair. She wants to fix her hair. She wants to be an advocate for Maria. But where I see this evidence in the way that the kids have become different through Maria and our story with them is when I look at Anne-Marie's friends and who she brings home and who she wants to spend time with. And so many times she is unaware of the differences in other people because she sees totally who someone is into the heart of who they are. And I just think our kids get it. So as I think about parenting, we said that was one of the things we would address today. Again, I don't get it all right, but I have a few ideas for parents. And so I'll throw out a few things for us to consider here that we've learned. And the first is, if you want to teach your kids to love, then find people who don't look like you or who don't believe like you do and love them. And I don't mean have their phone and have their number in your cell phone and say hi when you pass in the halls. I mean bring them to your home. Love them, and I promise you, your children will learn from that experience. And that could be just loving someone who believes something very differently than you, welcoming them in and learning from their experience. The other thing that I would say is to teach your children to be a helper. Teach them to go looking for ways that they can help, and they get it. Tell them, when there's someone on the playground who doesn't have a friend, you be the friend. hey, did you notice anyone at school who never gets to get ice cream? Let's send some extra money and let's let somebody else get ice cream. Was there anyone at the book fair today who didn't have any money? And maybe send in something for that child. Maybe become the mom who at the beginning of the year says, if there's a child in this class who does not have what they need, I want to stand in that gap. Put me in, right? I want to be the first to be notified. And then the last thing that I will say, it's a question that we've learned. And before I say this, I'm looking at some of my mom friends here who are parenting right alongside me. Let me confess, we have lots of Stanley cups. We have Kendra Scott. We have Lululemon. We have all the things, right? So in no way am I saying that this is wrong. We do it. My kids would be horrified if I said we were no longer going to do that. Where I step into parenting differently is when I see it becoming too important. And so it becomes a question that I ask, and it's a question I'd throw out for everyone. When I see them putting too much importance on name brand, I ask them, are we swimming in the deep end or the shallow end? And the question that I'm asking them to consider is, does this really get back to who you are? And if it doesn't, then it's become too important. It's okay to have the name brands, but let's also balance that with who you are. And I think that's something we all probably need to think about and address, but that's something that we've looked at. With these thoughts in mind, I just threw out one other thing. The advocate in me can't help myself, so I'll throw this out. You don't have to have someone from Africa move into your home. You don't have to really go outside the county lines in order to find need. And so I just pulled some statistics for you to be aware of, that if you want to become a helper, right now in Oconee County, there are over 1,700 students who receive free or reduced lunches. And I think it's easy to think there's nobody in need in Oconee County, and we're wrong, right? I think also to say that this is the statistic, if you know me, that bothers me the most. There are 5 homeless students graduating in Oconee County in May. Now you may ask yourself, where's Lydia's place? So I want to address that. That homelessness looks very different in different families. And so homelessness can also be couch surfing, and it may mean that a family is financially not able to live on their own, so they've moved into another family. But that living arrangement is fragile, and it can change very quickly. And so be aware, these are students who are in class with your kids. They're around you and your family at the ball field. They are near us. 590 students were recipients of Secret Santa. And I love Secret Santa. We do Secret Santa. But I just also want to add, they don't just have needs at Christmas. They need school supplies, and they don't just need pencils and glue. They need earphones. They need other things that are hard to get. And so I would ask you to think today, how might we, the moms in this room, the women in this room, stand in this gap? And how might we step in to help? And the other thing that I'll mention, if you don't find need in Oconee County, which I promise you it's here, then I want to introduce you to my friend Carla, who's here, one of my very close friends who works at Cleveland Road Elementary. And she and I met one day at the gym. We were at dance. And I was asking her, I said, are you so excited it's Christmas break? I could tell she was a teacher, by the way, I just knew. She said, no, I'm not excited it's Christmas. And I said, why? And she said, because I'm worried about where my kids are going over Christmas break. So here's an example, no money included. I don't know if you know this, but now all the lost and found from Dove Creek gets hauled over to Cleveland Road. And that's where so many of your students get jackets and water bottles. Sometimes it's not what you have to pay for, it's just where's the gap and how might you help? And this community does amazing things. We do. And I have proof of it that gets right back to Maria's story. And it'll be kind of like where we go with this. So you had a miracle that you needed, and this community stood in that gap. And so Maria and I, often we communicate through prayer. And so you will never tell me what's wrong usually. We have to be praying out loud for me to know it. And so one night we were praying, and
and then April was like, what is one thing that you would, one miracle that you would want God to do? And I was like, I was like, no. She was like, no. And April prays bold prayers. She's not scared to ask God for big things. And I said, if God can help my parents have their own house, that would be a huge miracle, and would just keep my mind at rest while I'm in another country. And April was like, okay, how much would that cost? I was like, no, I'm not telling you. But she kept on asking me. Unknown to me, she had reached out to every one of y'all in Oconee County, and I can see y'all seated in this room, to raise funds for my parents to get to have a house in Nigeria. And that was given to me at Christmas of that year. And that was a Christmas miracle.
So I was not having another crazy excess Christmas without something else balancing it out. So Maria told me it would take $6,000 to get a house for her family. And like, we know that's a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money. And so we didn't raise $6,000, we raised $12,000. And then people in this community started stepping in, like Lisa Collette said, well, where's the water coming from? And your family said, we're gonna have a well. Like, we're having our own water for this family. But like proof of how Maria's family responded, they were like, well, we don't want the well to just be for us. So we only want to get it if we can put a spigot in the yard and everybody else in the compound can get water too. Like that's different thinking than I know I have. It's amazing to me. And so now your parents have a potty.
Yes, they do.
And running water. And I would say there's been one other miracle within the last year that's been pretty cool. So a lot of things have happened over the years. But one other thing, your brother.
Yes.
So we had some money at one point. Let's send something back. And I don't remember. I think it was like $1,000 we sent.
Yes. And he was doing a cooking business, got it from my mom. And so he would cook and just college kids would buy the food, but then he didn't have money to like have a location, and part of the money that was raised was sent to him, and he was able to have 2 locations. And it happened that one celebrity came to his store to come buy food, and the store just went viral on Twitter. And right now he was able to have 2 locations of that restaurant.
And again, I just want to say, like, $1,000. That's a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. I think Beverly's the one who gave that money. Like, I'm just looking at the people here, but like who are stepping in and saying, like, let's do that. Like, let's make this happen. And so I point that out just to say that, like, we can make a huge difference. And now he's able to employ your mom, your dad, your sister.
My sister, yes.
And so it's amazing. So Maria, you've got some things you want us to consider as we wrap up our story here.
Yes. So some of the things I would like us to consider in the next slide is God can use your circumstance for good, no matter what it is. And that in the very moment, it might be very hard for you to see the miracle, but know that he is right there, in there with you, because without the presence of darkness, you cannot recognize that there is light. And the Word of God says that the light shines and the darkness cannot even comprehend it. So regardless of the situation you might be in this season, his light can overcome that darkness. And be willing to start even when you don't know the end. Like, April is a true example of this, because we did not have the entire journey of my bachelor's degree mapped out, but just jumped right in faith. And that is truly what God wants or desires of each one of us, to be flexible, because he is the manufacturer. We are the product. So we cannot know much more than the person who manufactured the product. So be flexible in your journey with him, and just listen for when he leads, and he will let you know the next right step. You might not see the entire journey, but he's in there with you.
Maria just talked about being flexible with the outcome. And like, the outcome was always to go back to Nigeria, and that hasn't happened. But I want to address something that did happen and how God has moved some incredible mountains. So in the next slide, Maria gets her bachelor's degree. And this was a fun moment. She called home and she says, April, they have asked me to wear a rope around my neck. Like, why would they do that? She graduated summa cum laude from her program. But then we ran into this next crisis, right? And that was, now we're out of visa. And so we had to go back to the drawing board. And we need to give credit. There were some people here who stepped in. Marcus Wiedauer, a state representative, went to bat for our family in a monumental way. We will be forever grateful. We couldn't get funding for Maria to start a master's degree, and that was really the best way for her to stay. And Sissy Watson stepped in and said, I'll take that first semester. And I want to acknowledge the people who said, one gap at a time, here I am, I'm stepping in. So God's moved mountains, and it's fun for me to get to tell you where we are now. We said that God will do things you never dreamed or never expected. This whole journey started with a speech, me trying to write a speech and tell a cool story. But it's getting to end tonight with you. our story ended this week with a master's degree, and Maria got her master's degree. And we got to go to her graduation at Georgia State. Pretty awesome. But what God did through that master's degree that we couldn't have figured out, it was like, but I'm called to serve. And she kept saying, how am I going to serve? And we didn't even get to get into Maria's family background, but your parents were Muslim and they converted to Christianity.
Yes.
And in your master's program, you got a cool assignment.
Yes, so I got the opportunity to work with students in Myanmar who were being persecuted for their faith in God. But while I was on that journey of that master's program, I did not know I would get to do that because I kept on saying, okay, how do I serve the kids in Nigeria? Like, is this dream gonna die? But God was trying to say, no, I'm expanding this, and don't just get stuck with your vision. It is my vision, not yours. And so right now, I'm able to reach out to these students, teaching them on Zoom and teaching the kids in Nigeria on Zoom. But for me, the epic moment was in January this year. I spoke with the students in Myanmar, and I said, what do you guys want to get out of this class this semester? And a girl just told me, I want to learn to read the Bible in English, in the King James Version. And right there, I knew, okay, God, this is why you asked me to take on this project. And I'm so grateful to God for how he's leading the way. I just need to become a faithful follower.
You are a faithful follower. So God expanded my story because I just wanted one child, and I have 4 girls now. And he just in the most unlikely way shows up and blows up our story and expands our coast and moves mountains. And I just wanted a family. And so Kip has a lot of girls around him. We keep adding girls. I wanted a family, and I kept saying, God, our family's not complete yet, but I want to show you the coolest circle. Is that God said our family's not complete yet because you have a whole family in Nigeria. And so we have not gotten to meet Maria's family yet, but her sister's a seamstress and sent her clothing back to us. And the way that you represent family in Nigeria is through your pattern, your family pattern. And so we got to send them a picture of our family dressed in their family pattern. And so this is really neat how God has taken our story and moved mountains. And the real star of this show is Maria. So to close us out, I want to ask you to think not about our story. We prayed before this started tonight that you really don't walk out of here remembering me and Maria, but that you really get in touch with your story. And how might God be ready to split the seas for you? And how might he be moving mountains in your family? And so Maria is going to sing 2 songs just for you to reflect, not again on us, but really on you. And how God might be moving you to trust him and to move you to a new place in your faith journey. And so right now I'll pray, and then I'll give Maria the full spotlight here. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I just can't thank you enough for inviting me to be a Maria's American Mama. God, I thank you for all of the women in this room. I thank you for those who have stepped into our story. God, I thank you for those who are going to walk out this door today and step into someone else's story, because that's really where it's at. God, I pray for the person here who is tired, who is wondering how the miracle's coming, and they can't see it yet, God. But I am coming to you in faith. You split the seas for us, and my God, I know that you will split the seas for them too. God, it is in you. We trust you. We praise you in advance. Amen. Here comes Daggy. We call him Daggy in our house. All the Nigerians call him Daggy, so he's going to play with Maria.
So the first song is going to be Oceans, just talking about how God calls us into the great unknown. And truly how life's journeys might be like the unknown, but he's with you in the deepest of the deep. You called me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail, and there oceans deep, my faith will stand. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, you are mine. Oh, you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you will call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you will call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon these waters wherever you will call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. And I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, you are mine. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine. Amen. 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 And then this last song is about no longer slaves to fear. Like we said, that Jesus split the sea for us, and he can split the sea for you as well. Yes, thank you, Jesus. Let me see. Split the sea. For you unravel me with the melody. You surround me with the song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears have gone. Now I'm no longer a slave to fear. child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Yes, we are children. We are children of the Father. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Your love has called my name, and we've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through our veins. And I'm no longer a slave to fear, because I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. 'Cause I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, we are children of God. Yes, there is no reason to be afraid. He's with you. Oh, He's your Father. Hey, yeah. I am surrounded by the arms of a Father. I am surrounded with songs of deliverance. We've been liberated from our bondage, and we're the sons and the daughters. Let us sing our freedom. Oh, 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 oh. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescue me, now I can stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. You drown my fear in perfect love. You rescue me, now I can stand and sing. I am a child of God. Oh, I am a child of God. Yes, I am a child of God. Oh, we are the children of God. Oh, we are a child of God. Thank you, Jesus. Yeah, we are. Yeah. 'Cause we're no longer a slave to fear, because you are a child of God. And you're no longer a slave to fear. You are a child of a loving God. Amen.
It's the most fun part of the night. I get to tell you what's next for Maria real quick. She graduated on Saturday, or on, what day was that we went? On Wednesday, she got her master's degree. And we just found out that Maria is on her way to Houston